We're looking good, you know,
Okay.
on the stream numbers. Let's go to the dashboard.
Dashboard.
Checka. Man, the video looks really clean.
Hi, R2.
You see it? As long as you got it muted, right?
There.
Yeah. And the last thing I'm doing is having the chat off to the side here, so I don't have to switch windows.
Oh, God. Now people can see how often I roll my eyes during the show.
Mm-hmm. I don't have to verbalize it anymore, so one less thing for me to do. People can see how happy I am, even talking about things I don't like as much. All right. Well, last thing I need to do, which probably is pretty important, is make sure my Audacity is going. Check. 1, 2, check. Yep, looking good. I don't know about your audio. Count me.
So
count me off?
you're not going to like this, but how to best say this? As much as I can, once we figure this out, I'm going to post the audio from the live stream as the podcast. I don't have time to edit
You're
anymore.
say that? Yeah.
Like, if I wasn't working, I did, but now that I'm working, I don't.
That's what you did with the last episode, right?
Last episode was, and I did the mostly full edit. I didn't listen to the whole thing, but I was like, okay, this was a good chunk. Then I would find the bits that need to be cut out, stuff. But like, and if this one's short, not a big deal.
Hi, viewers.
Hey.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Well, that's the beauty of
Yeah.
the live stream. When we improve at the live stream, less editing. But, it's probably always good to check. Well, we'll see how our sound bits sound in this, but, override those if we have to, if they're funky for some reason. You know how Skype is.
Yeah.
Delays and things and whatnot.
It's the worst is what it is.
Well, I'm ready. If you're ready.
All right. Give me a 3, 2, 1 and go.
3, 2, 1, record.
We have to start over. So I've got a mouse for my laptop and a mouse for my desktop, and I
double mouse.
I had the cursor over the record button, but I clicked it on the wrong mouse. So let's try that.
Wait, so but you got both hands on both mice now?
No, I'm good now. That was funny.
That's a perfect time, Mike, when you say that. Let's That's funny. Well,
go. Oh crap, that was the wrong mouse.
It's all good. Okay. 3, 2, 1, record. Welcome to the Canon Cantina, a Star Wars show where we try to answer the question, who is Luke Skywalker before the release of Star Wars Episode 9? How's everybody doing? And that's everybody out on the live stream, which is very exciting. My name is Jesse, and I am here with Mike. And we just survived XR Coon's assault again, an exorcism from him. Technical difficulties abound to get the live stream going.
Yeah.
And, the beauty, Mike, of not live streaming is in the past, we could have just said, we've got some issues or what. I mean, we would just fix it on our own ends and just record the podcast. But now we're live streaming and doing the podcast at the same time. That's not an option. So, but we're here now.
Yeah, I feel like he attacked our technology and my body because, like you heard on our last episode,
Gross.
could barely talk, was at the tail end of a cold. I couldn't talk for 2 weeks. That was awful.
That's right.
But I'm feeling a lot better, and we're back now. Got a fresh foot of snow here at Salt Lake Base on planet Utah. It's great, and I'm excited to see the fruits of all of Jesse's hard work in the live stream. Again, all credit to him. I did nothing other than buy the camera he told me to get. So, internet high fives to Jesse.
There we go. I feel like I lost part of my soul, but I think we're going to get through it, and it's going to be enjoyable after a while, Mike, if that makes sense. I feel like I'm turning into the Borg or something. I've just been abound in technical jargon and blogs and difficulties, but I think we figured it out. And, it's exciting because you guys are going to start watching us weekly. And today we're going to talk about a new story in the Star Wars universe about Luke Skywalker, and that is we're returning to the Marvel universe, the canonical Marvel universe, a story called Marvel Star Wars: The Screaming Citadel. And there's a lot about this, right, Mike? A lot about this story, a lot of paths converging.
Yeah, so this ran from May of 2017 to the end of 2017. It was like a quick crossover event between the main Star Wars comics line and the Dr. Aphra line. I think it was like three issues from Aphra, two from Star Wars, or maybe flipped.
That's right.
It was written by Jason Aaron and Kieran Gillen, with art by Marco Cicchetto, Sal Roca, and Andrea Braccardo. And just as a preview to read, Jason Aaron, one of the authors, described it like he had a promotion that this is very much a Star Wars gothic horror story.
Oh, that was his quote. I like that. Yeah, definitely is a Star Wars gothic horror story. And that's what a hook to bring you in, and something different, I'm assuming, today. But before we get into the story, Mike, I mean, well, let's remember where we were at in the Marvel stuff. We had a lot going on, and this is kind of like a deviating story from where we last were at. So we had Luke going on a journey, tracing Yoda's steps, that sort of thing. And we had R2 just stealing an X-Wing, going after 3PO. We'll return to that. This is a side story on the way to that main path. A lot of these stories are kind of going different ways, and I think in this story was their way of tying the Vader and Dr. Aphra comics in a more direct way, because, of course, in this we have Dr. Aphra, 000, and BT in this story.
It's all possible we went a little bit out of order, but that sort of happens when you've got a crossover across different series.
Yep, that's exactly what this is. But before we get into the actual crossover story itself, let's if you guys are new on the show, let's cover our Luke questions that we ask every time before we get into the story. The first question we ask about our hero, Luke Skywalker, is what state is Luke in at the beginning of the story? And this obviously varies from story to story, and we'll see what happens in this. The second question is, how do the events and characters of this story impact his development as a hero? And the third question is this consistent with the character of Luke presented in films, current Marvel comics, and the new canonical books?
All right, we ready to jump into this gothic horror story and get started?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it.
Ever since Luke disappeared, people have been looking for him.
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you.
A lot of rumors, stories.
And I became a legend.
People that knew him best.
Luke, young Skywalker. Luke.
All true.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
All of it.
Non-canonical.
You said to play that, huh?
Whoops. No, it just went on to the next track. I didn't hit pause fast
Oh,
enough.
I thought you
My
were
bad.
testing me.
Nope.
So, Mike, what state is Luke in at the beginning of this story? Like, because we got to remember, this is anyone at home that has been following us on Marvel so far. This is Luke between New Hope and Empire. He's wearing the yellow jacket.
That's right. Luke is a little bit down on himself at this point.
Again.
He's
Again, this happened in a recent story.
again,
Legends.
still whatever you want to call it. He's at the new Rebel base in the outer him, and he's like, man, I've been on so many adventures and had so many close calls. A stormtrooper with a lightsaber almost killed me.
That's
I had
right.
to fight a genetically enhanced and the buffest hut ever.
Gracchus the Buff
But I
Hut.
still don't know. I don't know anything else about being a Jedi. He's just sort of gotten lucky and using in the right way at the right time to save his skin. And he knows that, which is probably good. And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go to the cantina and pick a fight with some people.
And that's how this story starts. Yeah, I don't know if Luke's wanting to start a fight, to be fair to Luke here at the beginning, but he's just hanging out in a bar, and it's the typical cantina thing where the guys are like, haven't seen you around these parts. What are you doing here? Why are you here? You know, this is our bar.
I mean, they say it's a non-human bar, and he chose to go into it. They're like, they didn't know it was Luke Skywalker. They're just like, hey, human, what are you doing in here? You should know better.
Well, they said that after he sat down at the bar, but I get what you're saying. Yeah, it's not like Luke saw that and it's like, man, I want to be really punk rock today. I'm going in. He just went into this place, and they're like, well, you're not allowed. And then they
Luke Skywalker has never been punk rock once in his life.
That's something we're gonna have to look into now. But yeah, I bet there's a instance, but you know, it's pretty funny. So
I'd put money on that.
this is a classic Star Wars cantina, and you know, we're in the Canon Cantina right now, guys, and these guys just want to beat Luke up because they're like, you're not supposed to be in here. We don't want you here, and let's beat him up.
They're like, no, we don't serve your kind here. Ha!
Yep. And at this second, basically, Dr. Afra steps into the bar and says, hey, leave the farm kid alone. He's with me. And they look at her and they say, is that you, Afra? One of them recognizes her from a Deal Gone Wrong, very Han Solo-esque thing. And she goes, what if it is? And then they come after her as well. So then it begins this large bar fight, and Luke's like, what is happening?
You are missing a key point, though.
Oh, I know. I'm saving it for you.
Oh, okay. You were saving. Okay, good. Because Afra opens her mouth and gets him in some more trouble.
And Luke's like, what are you doing? It's just two of us.
She was totally confident because Muscle was there, Black Chrysanthemum, the Wookiee bounty hunter, who we had met previously in Vader Down. Was that right?
That's right. Yeah, Vader Down. And he also came up in one of the Star Wars comics too, Mike, if I remember. A lot of beatdowns with Wookiees in these comics. I like that the Wookiees are prevalent, including Chewbacca. So Dr. Afra, Luke, and a bounty hunter Wookiee, who we've seen in the story now several times, beat down a whole bar of guys. A lot of guys, like, I don't know, 15 maybe, something like that. 12, some high number.
Well, let's go back and count. No, I don't want to do that. It was an impressive beatdown. It was it started similar to the JJ of Star Trek.
Yeah.
When Kirk is in the bar and they're like, hey man, there's 5 of us and 1 of you, and Kirk's like, so go get some more guys.
Yep.
It almost starts like that for Luke, and then Afra and Chrysanthemum show up.
Right. And something we mentioned is Luke basically, I don't remember his line in this, Mike, but I thought it was really interesting. He tries to talk him out of the fight because he's like, man, I don't want to hurt you, basically. And it's very Luke-esque at the beginning.
Yeah.
He's basically saying, I can take you.
I remember reading that and thinking, that seems a little too aggressive to be Luke-esque to me. Maybe it's frustrated Luke.
Yeah.
He wasn't saying, I'm going to hurt you, but it was a more threatening way of him talking to people than we're used to also at this point, if that makes sense.
Yep. And so at this point, they're leaving the bar, and Afra calls him a Jedi Padawan wannabe. And Luke says, a what? Which I thought was kind of a funny nod.
By the way, for those that had missed our episode about Vader Down or haven't read Vader Down,
That's right.
Go read it. It's one of the best comic arcs that we've done. But Luke has encountered Dr. Afra and Black Chrysanthemum before when they tried to capture him and kill his friends, Darth Vader. So not exactly on the best of terms, but Luke's like, hey, we were on the same side in a bar fight and we sort of escaped.
That's right.
But you worked for Darth Vader.
He's evil.
You're evil.
Yeah, you're evil.
And
like
I was
him.
reading that. I was reading that. You worked for Darth Vader. You're evil.
Evil. Yeah. Well,
It's got the italics on
yeah.
there.
He means it at this point. Like we keep saying, this is the pre-Empire Luke. And, well, Dr. Aphra kind of gives Luke a Han sort of lecture that on the nuance of the universe and that gray can exist and, you know, smugglers and cowboys and bounty hunters that just exist within the world are a thing. And she's like, well, he was my boss out of fear and also just out of jobs. No offense, kid, you know, and that meant nothing against you and your rebellion, that sort of thing. And he's like, but hey, didn't your droid shock me? He's talking about, he's talking about 000 impersonating 3PO. If you have listened to our Vader Down episode. And she's like, you know what? He's just kind of like that. And let's just forget all that. Let's move on because I need you for a quest, basically, is what she says. And she,
that is basically
and she says,
what she
we
says.
basically can benefit from this quest. And Luke says, okay, I'm listening. And she says, you're a Jedi wannabe. And he's like, he keeps saying that. I'm not. And she's like, and I am an archaeologist trying to basically unlock this artifact I found. And I need a Jedi to help me do it. And Luke's like, okay. And that's where our story picks up. And Luke kind of tentatively agrees to go with her to this castle to use this artifact, right?
So he only agrees to go with her once he's gone onto her ship and seen this artifact. The Aspectu Clatu Barada Nectar.
Yeah.
Nectar. It's
Knee.
It's basically
Gotta throw in the knee.
the canon version of a holocron.
Yeah.
Knows that it's got the not essence, but basically like the personality programming of an ancient Jedi named Rur. R-U-R. So for the 30 Rock fans out there, the Rur-Jur Jedi is on the holocron.
What do you mean? What do you mean when you say canonical? Because we've seen the holocrons being canonical right now, right? I think
Not with Luke,
Not with
though.
Luke, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Gracchus's,
we,
Gracchus's archives, I guess, is what I was talking about. There was.
Oh, you're right. I
activated
was just
all
thinking
those.
more. I was thinking more about Dark Empire, that holocron,
Okay.
and how this is sort of the new comics version of that. But you're right. I forgot that Luke had encountered them before.
Seems like it's a more primal version of the holocron, like a Jedi's actual essence, not a Jedi's data, and recordings of a Jedi, like we've seen with the canonical and Legends holocrons. More mystical for sure, but they go on this quest, and they're going on a quest to a Gothic-looking castle. Looks like Castle Dracula or Vlad's castle.
The Citadel of Catathatin. And it's funny because there's even a line from Aphra in there where she basically tells Luke, don't waste your time trying to pronounce it. You're going to get it wrong.
That's so true. Yeah. And what we find out about this castle is that it's run by a queen, and she has some pretty scary looking Secret Service guys, we'll call them that look sort of like ancient, kind of like the Sith warriors of the Old Republic, not the actual Sith leaders, but more the gladiatorial armored guys and that sort of thing.
I do feel like we need to back up for just a second because Luke gets on a ship with Dr. Aphra, Black Chrysanthemum, 000,
That's right.
and BT-40.
All villains.
So he gets on the villain's ship and goes with, Chrysanthemum and Bounty Hunter, Aphra. Okay, working for villain, maybe some good there, and 2 just straight up murder droids.
That's right.
To go learn about being a Jedi. So I guess that shows how desperate Luke is to finally learn something from the Ordu Aspectu, so he can advance his Jedi training a little bit. And not only does he go with these villains with, pretty much no convincing. He doesn't tell Han or Leia or Sana, who is still with them. Aphra talks him out of letting them know because he's still sort of dumb.
He is curious, Mike. He's naive. He's curious. He's interested. All that. So, I don't know. That's what I would call it. So,
Anyway, but then we do end up at the Citadel of, let's see how I do this time. The 10. That was better.
that is better. I mean, these are all, in my experience, Mike, knowing a lot of Star Wars planets, these are all, I think, new planets, at least in the new canon. So,
Oh, hey, so for you listeners that are, or viewers watching us on the live stream,
that's right.
you're gonna get a chance to see us testing something in real time. Jesse, if this breaks everything and the computers fall apart, I'm sorry.
All right.
But
Hang on to something.
okay, I'd have to make it full screen. I was just trying to show what the castle or the Citadel looked like, but I don't think I did anything. Did anything? I tried to share my screen, but it didn't work. Okay, never mind.
Well, it's all right.
It's cool art. I wanted people to see it.
Well, I will bring that in next time. We will do that.
I think the important thing is I didn't break anything.
That is the important thing. So we get to this
I
castle.
just tried to replace my camera with that. Anyway.
And I haven't mentioned yet, Mike, I don't know what your thoughts are on all this, but I kind of love the art in this first issue where they're going to the castle and all that stuff. And they arrived at the castle, and I just think it's beautiful. It's very gothic looking, but it's also very detailed, the environments and the characters in the environments.
Oh, yeah. The art in the first issue is by far the best.
Yeah, without a doubt.
In this series. Characters look right. The ships are most detailed. Colors seem to pop better.
Oh, yeah. So when they get to this castle, they realize that Afra knows a lot more than Luke about what's actually going on with this queen. And Luke kind of realizes quickly that they are going to see this queen. And there's people coming from all over the galaxy, all different races, bringing this queen gifts for her favor.
Yeah, she comes out once a year to judge things, people, gifts, whatever, and decide what she likes. I never really understood the motivation for the queen, honestly. And they wanted to have a gothic horror story in Star Wars. She doesn't seem to fit with a lot of what we've seen of the rest of the galaxy.
She's honestly more of a countess than a queen. I guess that's what they're going for. With the gothic horror element, but I don't know. She has a lot of influence, and people seem to think she has mystical and sage advice. So they kind of bring items to tribute to her. It's kind of more of a religious event, Mike. And so they come to this ceremony, and there's people dressed formally, and they're all bringing different things to the queen, but they're also interacting and hanging out together. And we got all sorts of species. I was really excited to see not only original trilogy species representation, but also a lot of prequel trilogy representation. I saw a Toydarian and a Gungan and some other races. We saw also a prune face in there.
I was going to bring that up if you did.
So we got a lot of interesting
face.
Yeah, this artist really cared about Star Wars and was like, I want to draw a Toydarian, I want to draw a prune face, I want to challenge myself. And
there is a Gungan. I missed him.
Oh, it's great.
The first time.
Yeah. And they're all bringing these gifts to her, and they're all sort of, I mean, they're almost too subservient to her. It's very strange. And Luke and Afra kind of pick up on this. They don't know what to think about it, but.
Yeah, so to give you an idea of some of the gifts these people are bringing, one dude, I don't know what race he is, brings a hieropodic aether beast, which is just some monster. The Toydarian.
That first guy was super
brings,
cool, by the way. Like character creation. That first guy.
The Toydarian brings from the lab the gene heretic Silo, who we've talked about a little bit.
I know.
A cyber animate flop. That's dumb. And then Prune Face is like, I have a jar full of lightning bugs.
What if that's actually
what
if that's actually Prune Face? Like this is what he's doing at this time before the rebellion.
That's perfect because it's Prune Face before he lost his eye.
Yeah.
Because doesn't he have an eye patch or something in Return of the Jedi?
And a cape and a camouflage cape. So
actual Prune Face. I have a jar full of purple fireflies.
Man, we have people saying hello in the chat, Mike. So there we go. They came in at a good time. Hello.
I hope you know who Prune Face is. He's that dude in Return of the Jedi who I thought had one of the most hilarious Robot Chicken Star Wars bits.
Oh, yeah. You gotta love it. You gotta love it. You gotta love this. Seth Green loves Prune Face as well. But so all these people are bringing in these gifts to her. Like she's almost like a god of sorts, more than just a queen or a countess, like we talked about. And they finally, Afra gets up there with Luke. And we realize at this point as readers that Luke is kind of the gift, Mike. I don't know how she'd say it, but Luke is the gift to the queen.
Yeah. So
and they're like,
are we supposed to believe that this is where Luke got the idea to present R2 and 3PO as gifts to Jabba?
I don't know. Maybe.
Is that a connection they want us to make, or is that just sort of coincidence?
I might be at least a subtle nod because, I mean, Luke's like, well, I've experienced this sort of thing before, encountering royalty.
I was a gift before, you can do it now.
Yeah, Luke's like, I know how this goes. So, yeah. And Luke's at a completely different place, obviously, at that point. If you guys want to listen to our thoughts on that, listen to our very lengthy and very in-depth Return of the Jedi episode early on the show. But, so at this point, Mike, Luke is, I guess, accosted by one of the guards because Afra says, I have you this boy. And they're like, what is a farm boy from Tatooine mean anything to your queen?
Accosted after the queen's servant or whatever who was approving or rejecting these. And Afra's like, wait a minute. That's when this guard, this D-bag from the crowd that Luke interacted with earlier tries to mess with him. And Luke's all, boom, force push, get away.
Pure reaction from Luke, not thought out to use the force to push him away. And the queen witnesses this and says, oh, okay. And the queen's main advisor, who we have not actually talked about yet, Mike, but he looks a little bit like a vampire looking guy.
Yeah, we're definitely supposed to be getting vampire vibes from all of these people.
But yeah, especially her main advisor. He's literally wearing a hooded cloak, and he looks like the life has been sucked out of him, and he's kind of all wrinkly and gross. But he says, okay, after witnessing Luke's force push, everyone respectfully leave. Anyone that gave the queen a gift earlier that we accepted, we now respectfully retract.
Never mind. This one's better. You all go home.
Everyone needs to leave now. So this big formal party, all these people hanging out, they all are forced to leave the queen's presence. And I say, but you, farm boy, and you, Afra, stay here. We have a special treat for you, is what they basically say.
Yeah. And then the last couple pages of this first issue is kind of a peek behind the queen's motivation. She's got her henchmen that are going to go out and get the life force or essence of people. And she's literally saying, feed me. And, it has been too long since I tasted Jedi, since I last tasted Jedi. And everything is downhill from here because this series gets very, very stupid.
You're like, I enjoyed it until this panel.
I was with it until here, but it's all downhill from here, folks.
That might be true. Yeah. I still enjoy parts of this, but yeah, I think it does meander towards the end, but we'll get to that. But yeah, I know what you mean, Mike. So they're taking a pretty aggressive turn here, and rather than staying on a gothic horror feel, which I'm all about, in a Star Wars-y way, they're almost just departing from Star Wars entirely. Not fully.
Too much.
Not fully, but a large portion, yeah. And we literally see this last panel, these are gorgeous panels, but it's a giant picture. And it's her sucking the life force basically out from all of her minions and the entire town that stays below her castle, which is obviously very vampire-esque and Dracula-esque. So it's a nod there, but yeah, she's basically draining the life force of this entire town. We're led to believe it's through some sort of force sensitivity, but not necessarily Sith or Jedi, like we've encountered before. So this is the part I do like.
It doesn't even imply force directly. I mean,
I
guess you could make that connection.
You have to hope.
Sure.
I don't know. I mean, I hope so, but it's really interesting because it actually does add an interesting twist at the end of the story that, oh, that's why everyone is so enamored with her, more than just her being royalty or this beautiful queen or whatever. She is actually manipulating everyone and taking their life force.
Yeah.
They're indentured servitude to her permanently, which of course is the old school vampire thing, where you have all these minions that just do what you ask as a vampire ruler. So we immediately go into the next couple of issues, Mike, and of course Han and Leia get involved. They find out what Luke went with Afra.
They're like, oh, we have to go rescue Luke again. Blah blah.
And
blah,
they're like,
blah.
yeah,
and
they're worried.
Their connection
They're worried.
to finding him.
Yeah.
Well, they're worried, but their connection is Sana and Afra. It's hinted at used to be a thing,
Right.
And so we had an ex-girlfriend tracking Afra down.
Yeah, once again, I guess Sana's still around and they gotta have her stuff to do. I like that she's getting more backstory, but it's, it just seems a weird way for them to bring Han and Leia into the story too, or you know what I mean? It's all three of them into the story together, and of course, once again, Mike, I'm not sure where R2-3PO and Chewbacca are. That's something I was.
They say Chewie has to stay behind because Wookiees aren't allowed on this planet, which they come up with a pretty terrible reason why.
He's too powerful.
Yeah.
That's what it is, because we're gonna or there'd be too many Wookiees in this story, because we have, of course, the Wookiee bounty hunter.
Basically, we didn't want to ask our artists to draw two Wookiees on the same page.
Gotta love the logistics. So Han, Leia, and Sana show up to rescue Luke, and at this point we actually have Luke and Afra having a fancy meal with the Queen. And once again, this is very Dracula-esque.
To me, it was almost more reminiscent of Indiana Jones' Temple of Doom, the chilled monkey brains scene, where she's like, the krill crab eggs are getting cold, and you don't want them to eat your lips off after they hatch, or what. It's like, oh, okay. Is that the vibe we're going for here?
She puts Luke through a weird test where she tries to have him open his dinner plate dish with the Force on command. And of course, Luke can't do it because we've seen how he treats.
Because he's a terrible noodle scooter.
You beat me to
I
it.
was so excited
You cut me to it. Yeah, you're like, oh, we've seen him do this before. He can't even barely scoot a noodle. So of course, not a giant golden lid.
What book was that? He couldn't. That was Heir to the Jedi, right?
Abomination. The Star Wars.
That he couldn't move a noodle, and now to ask him to prove you're a Jedi, lift the, and he can't do it.
Man, Heir to the Jedi.
It a fun, probably fun for me because of how much I knew it bothered Jesse. Unintentional, callback to. From comics to a canon novel.
That's right. And Luke, of course, couldn't do it. And she even tries to bring out one of her henchmen to basically attack him to see if they can bring out what they brought out earlier with Luke, which was the sort of visceral reaction with the Force, right? And
this is hilarious. In the panel above, Afra even has a mouthful of noodles.
You're just like, you're like, I'm all about this.
And so we've switched artists for this book or second issue, and the Queen looks totally different.
Yeah, nothing the same almost, right?
If you hadn't read part one, it's barely recognizable as the same character.
Isn't that weird? Really strange.
Yeah,
I get, you and I both get being comic readers the way comics work sometimes, but this is something that always takes me out of these stories, Mike, especially because I'm such a visual art driven guy. And it's just really strange. And
yeah, and I mean, it's pretty clear that these were created at the same time, so they couldn't see what she looked like in the first issue or whatever.
Luke looks bad in the second issue to me.
I usually am pretty good at rolling with artist changes, but this was particularly in the case of the Queen or Countess. Yeah. She Dracula, space Star Wars Dracula.
Well, we're the important stuff now. So Luke removes the lid of his thing just physically with his hand. And there is a giant brain-eating head crab from Half-Life in there, is what I saw when I saw that. If you played the Half-Life games. But
there's 3 of them.
Yeah, and it literally, they launch at him. It's very similar to the head crabs in Half-Life. So if that gives you an idea what it's like. And she basically gives Luke, I guess, Mike, the rundown on how these guys work. And so does Afra. Afra's like, no. This is not a meal. This is like, we need to get out of here. These things suck your brains, and they're parasitic.
Afra realized she'd been double-crossed by the Queen just in time to warn Luke to avoid getting his brain eaten. And she's like, oh, no, these are the brain-eating crabs from Half-Life, the head crabs. And Afra, like, she does a Dr. Krieger and throws a smoke bomb so they can get out of there.
Yeah, and Luke dodges them, and it's, it's horrific. It's there's horror references there. What's funny about the head crabs from Half-Life? That's basically what these are, because the head crabs in Half-Life sit on your head and they turn you into these shambling zombies. And this, with the things bite you and they inject in your neck some sort of larvae, and then you become a shambling zombie. And that's exactly what our heroes experience next when Luke and Afra go in the hallway. I'm sure Mike loved this part. Actually, I was completely okay with this part.
How were you okay with this? This is so stupid and so outside of Star Wars.
That she's turned all those patrons from the earlier part of the night into shambling minion corpses.
I can live mind control or whatever,
parasitic,
but
hive
these
mind.
people are still alive. Why does this Gungan look like a zombie with no skin around his mouth, or Jesse's describing them? They are shambling zombies coming down the hallway towards him.
They're not exactly decaying, but they are. Yeah, they're not been taking care of themselves. I don't know, Mike. What's really interesting about this is I don't know if you've seen that episode of Clone Wars, and I should have done my research before this and rewatched it, but there was an episode of Clone Wars with a similar virus. If you remember that,
I sort of remember that.
But that was a virus.
I've seen it, but I don't remember the details of that one.
I feel like this is a nod to that, maybe, but obviously more backed in the horror thing. But I don't know. I'm not against this is kind of like we said Half-Life, but it's also kind of like the Flood from Halo in a way or something. It's a parasite goes into you, and then apparently the Queen is actually the queen of this hive mind with all these parasites, I guess is what you call it.
I'll go ahead and say it. I'm against fake zombies in Star Wars. I'll draw a line there.
Fair enough. More Patreon content, Mike. Death Troopers for you. So you scroll through that.
Not happening.
You just go, no. We'll make it happen. Halloween time.
And all the while, so Luke and Afra are trying to escape these zombies. 000 is being slightly too ham-fisted mirror universe C-3PO.
That's what he is.
He would just have the goatee, but they everything black. And we end with, are we still allowed to murder rebels? Because he's captured Sana, Han, and Leia.
Yeah, I like it. And this is kind of how our heroes get together as they're all running from these corpses, these shambling things. And, Mike, I do like saying a shambling Gungan. So
no, that's the worst one.
I knew you'd think that.
You are wrong, sir.
I mean, I didn't see if Pruneface I think Pruneface made it out. I'm not sure. I have to look at that panel again. But
I don't think that. I think they rejected his gift, so that's how he to Home One and Return of the Jedi.
That's probably how the Toydarian got out too, because then we'd have a shambling flying zombie Toydarian. That'd be a whole nother level of something. So terrifying, and certainly. So hijinks ensue, of course. We've covered all the main story points at this point, I feel like, Mike, but things start happening. Much happens.
We are just two out of 5 issues we've covered so far.
Isn't that weird? They're the story ones. They're the story ones.
Because nothing happens in the next 2.
Action. Action.
There's action, and some of it is well done action.
Oh, let's talk about a wild action part. In a very 000 fashion, which I thought was strange, but also very much this character, this alter ego of C-3PO, evil C-3PO, assassin droid C-3PO. He grabs one of these head crabs and shoves it onto the bounty hunter Wookiee.
Ooh, it's worse than he doesn't just put it on Black Chrysanthemum's head. He like picks his hand up and, oh hey, I've got a circular saw here. He has to like cut open the Wookiee's head.
Yeah,
to put this thing.
He gives him like a lobotomy,
going faster,
like a lobotomy before he does it, and they're like, "What's wrong with you?" And he's like, "I mean, at least he's knocked out. Like it's humane. I don't have to put him under." So
yeah, there's a whole side story where the Queen Countess, whatever you want to call her, has this super soldier assassin droid thing that looks sort of like what are they called? Legend of Zelda. Iron Knuckle, is that what the suits of armor were called? And
looks like the
looks sort of like a Star Wars-y version of that.
Sounds like the Old Republic Mandalorians too, if you know what I'm talking about, where they have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot bigger than a person.
Yeah. Boss fight.
Black Chrysanthemum has to become a head crab to fight this thing and beat it.
Which is kind of fun. It's so dumb though, but
and we hit peak dumb when we get to the page where
I don't want to talk about
crab is driving him now, and Chrysanthemum's eyes are red.
He's running like a werewolf, which actually I kind of like because I'm like, yeah, that's what the head crab would do.
There's just a full page of him going, and I'm doing my best approximation of it now that we're on camera. Hi, everybody.
Dude, look at Mike. This is why Chewie couldn't be in this story. They would not defile Chewie to this role. They're like, this is not appropriate for our favorite Wookiee, but a Wookiee that we barely know, who's usually a bad guy, this is okay. So Black Chrysanthemum actually goes on a bloodbath rampage through her castle and is killing guards, and I think some of the other shambling corpses maybe. I can't.
Oh yeah.
So he just goes on a rampage, and it gives our heroes an opening to go around and kind of encounter the Queen. When they encounter the Queen, though, Mike, Han goes under the influence of one of these head crabs. And this is the part I did not like at all. I did not like this at all. It was so goofy.
It's really bad. It's goofy, and the art that goes with it, like it looks like Han, like washed out in red and red eyes,
Right.
and he's like drooling. He's like, "How may I serve you, my queen?"
Yeah, it's like he becomes like the sarcasm of Han gets turned into mustache twirling villainous stuff. So his sarcasm is turned into the villainous stuff, which is really bizarre because I feel like if you're just gonna do the zombie route or whatever, it's just like make him just, I don't know, come after the other heroes. He doesn't have to talk, you know? It's so weird. Like he could just, why does Han have sentience while the Gungan is a shambling corpse? You know?
Well, they explain that later when. Do we want to jump there?
Yeah, we can jump there.
I'm like looking at you, but I should look up here at you. Jesse's been streaming longer than I have. I hope you've watched his Battlefront streams.
I'm doing more soon.
Yeah, we can jump just straight to the final battle, can't we?
Yeah, definitely. So Han is under the influence. The Wookiee's running rampant. Leia and Sana and Afra are gunning down guards, which is cool. But Luke is, Luke starts fighting the Queen. Let's start there, Mike, I guess. And
he starts fighting the Queen, and she is like boss fight teleporting away, sort of.
That's right.
It looks like, I think it was Breath of the Wild, and maybe one of the Zelda game before, where enemies look sort of like pixelated.
Right.
I think that started in
the one before it.
Was the first one on the Wii. I forget what it was. Anyway,
the little thing riding the wolf. I can't remember the name.
Yeah, how they would like teleport all pixelated, like looks all right in the comic.
Yeah, it's pretty neat looking visually.
But Luke can't. He's trying to slash with his lightsaber, and it's not working. So Afra has figured out what's going on.
That's right.
That she is the top intelligence or whatever running this hive mind, which is now controlling Han and Black Chrysanthemum. So she's like, oh, well, I'll just put a strong personality in there to challenge her. And she shoves a head crab on Luke.
That's right.
But instead of saying, how may I serve you, my queen, evil red Sith eye head crabby Luke says, bow before your king, while holding his lightsaber.
Basically, he's saying, I'm not giving in to this, which is really interesting. And
No, I'm reading it. He says, bow before your king.
I'm jumping ahead. Sorry. So this is a good question to ask her. How do the events and characters and villains of this story impact Luke's development as a hero? I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah. I want to say Luke learned, but he keeps getting yes and going with people that he shouldn't go with.
That's true. He wanted to help this archaeologist out.
This archaeologist whose murder friends had already tried to kill him.
Yeah. Well, he's like, I forgive you. I'm Luke. So I forgive
you. I'm dumb.
Yeah. Mike says dumb. I say noble or whatever, or naive or whatever Luke is at this point. a combo of noble and naive, let's say, and some honor
and dumb.
Some honorable stuff mixed in as well. Yeah, and I want to see, what does he learn, you think, from the Countess? I'm gonna start just calling her that. I know she's the queen, but
whatever.
I'm a Dracula fan here. Does he learn anything from her? Like early on, he's still kind of tentative about this whole situation. And when they serve them the head crabs for dinner, Luke doesn't want any of that.
That's a funny sentence to say about a Star Wars story, isn't it?
It is. It is. You never know. So some of the things we draw on the show, Micah, I'm like, we're either really wrong or we're really right, or we just think we're funny, or it is funny. But it's, there's a lot of things.
Oh, I know we're funny.
I just can't stop thinking about the head crabs in Half-Life. I can't. So
yeah. Well, so basically, Luke proves to be stronger in the Force. He rejects.
That's right.
This is important, I guess.
I like this part.
In his, like, they cut to what's happening in his brain, and he's fighting with the head crab for control, and the Dark Jedi roar, because of course it's not a good guy that's locked in that fake holocron. No. It's a bad guy.
Yeah. Oh, the artifact.
Is
artifact. Yeah.
Yeah, is trying to influence him, and Luke does realize, you're wrong. That's not what a Jedi would do, and he wins because he does that. But trying to get this back to, our questions.
Right.
Luke, once again, was largely separated from the main cast.
That's right.
Like Han and Leia and Sana were there to rescue him, but he wasn't doing a whole lot with them. He was with villains most of the time.
That's right.
And
some villains kind of gray. Dr. Aphra, gray villain. So
yeah, interesting villain. Anyway, how did they impact his development? I mean, I guess that Luke got one step closer to not trusting literally everybody after this experience.
Yeah. He got beat down pretty good by someone who's not an Imperial, who's not a Sith. The Queen beat him up pretty good. But, of course, Mike, like you said, Luke breaks the hold, the psychic hold she has on him, and actually just does one slash and kills her, which is pretty cool way to end the fight. I thought it was going to go into some extra, like, level 2 of the boss fight, Didn't do that.
Next form.
Did not do that. That's right. You have not seen my final form. So Luke breaks free there. I guess we'll go on to the next Luke question before we finish up the story. Is this consistent with the Luke we've seen in the Marvel comics and the new canon and the movies?
I'm going to say it doesn't matter. And that is a function of this being a side story crossover event.
Yeah.
I don't think anything that Luke learns is contradictory to what we've seen, but I don't think it contributes anything to it either, because Luke doesn't really grow in his Force here. He thought he was at the beginning. He's like, I'm going to go get a holocron or a what? I already forget the Ordu Aspectu and learn from an ancient.
Nice.
No,
Nice.
it's a trap. It's not a. He realizes that he can't, take shortcuts like that. So I guess he learned what the wrong way to go about becoming a Jedi would be.
That's right.
He didn't get any better at being one either. So, yeah, I think it largely just doesn't matter with our third question.
Yeah, and I don't think it matters in comparison to the other Marvel comics, which if you guys have been following the show to this point,
That's also true.
Like
yeah.
Luke's been encountering like Jedi temples, and now the last story we did, which was the most interesting to me in a lot of ways for Luke, was, he learned a story about Yoda, from Obi-Wan's perspective, and the trials that Yoda faced, how Yoda learned, how he succeeded and failed in certain ways. That matters because that's canonical. This is like a silly, fun horror story on the side. And really what's most important on this story is that Luke has a reasonably good relationship with Aphra by the end. And I feel like that's going to come into play in the future.
Fair.
That's going to come into play in the future of this new canon because she is such a prominent new canon character.
Suck it, Rebel Force Radio.
I like her.
Anybody? So. No, I think Afra's great, and they don't. So that's why. Yeah, I don't really have any other thoughts on this story. It was fun to read through. I said it was all downhill after the first issue, and it kind of was. It got really off the rail and very out of character for Star Wars, but it was a fun read.
All these are fun reads, and the art in the first issue is exceptionally gorgeous, so I think it's worth it for that alone. But yeah. We'll see where this goes in the future if Luke actually encounters Aphra again. But I'll finish at the end of the story, Mike. This is a strange way to end the story, but when Luke kills the Queen, all the villagers of the town and the planet are released from her holes, which I think is kind of great that Luke actually saved all these people. He didn't know he did, but inadvertently he did. The zombie Gungan came back and all that. But the way the story ends is so bizarre. It's so overplayed, but we'll just, it's something. And it's relevant because I think we'll come up with it again in the future. The story ends with the villager finding the Queen's body and then essentially them touching the Queen's body and then the Queen being like, yes, I have a new host. I didn't die. And now the villager becomes the Queen.
So the Queen was never really humanoid at all.
Nope.
She was just a bug.
Yep. So apparently she's just been taking over people's body, and her last breath and the last panel of the thing is her screaming Skywalker. So is she going to try to find Luke again? Because he messed up her whole power dynamic of controlling that whole city and all the people in it.
I certainly hope not.
I think she's coming back. We'll see. I don't know.
She's going to be the main antagonist in episode 9.
That's so funny.
We're going to find out that she was the head crab controlling Snoke who built the First Order down from there.
Sounds like something that would be on YouTube.
I was going to say the same thing.
Not going to name any names, but definitely on YouTube. But yeah, maybe she'll encounter Vader and Vader will just put an end to her.
Everybody was a head crab.
Yeah.
That's like back during the Secret Invasion comics run. Everyone's a Skrull. It's fine.
I could see Vader going to town on a room full of head crabs in the flood. Like Rogue One, a weird horror version of that. So extra horror. So that's our story today. It was an interesting story, but
it was
what
fun.
do you think about all that, Mike? I don't know. Just final thoughts. Final thoughts before we move on.
I knew nothing about Screaming Citadel.
Same.
Or we read it for this episode. It's fun. I get what they were going for. They were like, we're going to do our best to make a Halloween story for Star Wars in the middle of the summer for some reason.
Right. Right.
No, whatever.
The graphic novel was ready by Halloween. That's why.
Yeah,
maybe.
That's a good point. So that'll do it for the Screaming Citadel. Let's go into our Audible plug. We've got a new promotion for patrons of the Canon Cantina. a free audiobook download with a 30-day trial
right.
to give you the opportunity to check out their service. This week, we are recommending a fan favorite that I have argued against doing on the show for long, but Jesse and other listeners have beaten me down. We're going to go back to Legends, and we're going to recommend I, Jedi by Michael Stackpole. If you've recently read it or just want to try something else, you can try any other audiobook at Audible. But that's the story that we're talking about next week.
Yeah.
So if you want to get a jump on what we're going to talk about next week, check out iJedi. To get your free audiobook today, www.audibletrial.com/thecanoncantina. That's audibletrial.com/thecanoncantina to make yourself listen to iJedi and giving Jesse a lot of crap. I enjoyed reading it when I was a kid. I just read about if it fit on our show. So I guess we'll find out next week.
And my answer to that is Luke's head is on the cover. Look at your...
I don't remember that.
Mike said, just Corn and Luke on the front. That's all we got. But yeah, guys, my quick plug for iJedi, if you don't know anything about it, is the story we just did on the show, the Jedi Academy trilogy, through a different character's perspective. And obviously there's more to the book than that. It's through one of Luke's students, Corran Horn's perspective. He has other things going on before and after the Jedi Academy trilogy that are in that book. But a large portion of the book is actually what we just did from his perspective. So we're going to actually look through it with, I think, some pretty interesting and educated eyes to see if the Jedi Academy stuff is fleshed out in a different way and if his encounters with Luke are different. So I'm actually pretty excited for that part.
Cool. Jesse's going to be mad at me because I don't have this sound cue ready like I thought I did, but we're going to hop over and do some news from the HoloNet because it's been a while. So, video games.
Oh, no.
I like to play them.
Yes.
You like to play them. Jesse likes to stream them. Well, EA continues to
disappoint
their ownership of the Star Wars license. Electronic Arts canceled their untitled Star Wars open world game that was supposed to be focused on like the underworld and bounty hunters and stuff. Right. Yeah, it had been in development for a year and a half, something like that. It had big names attached to it. Like if you've ever played the Uncharted games on PlayStation, those are great. Person who oversaw those was supposed to be overseeing the Star Wars game, and they've just kind of canceled it. They might see parts of it reused in a smaller game. But EA sucks because they canceled what was supposed to be a big, exciting Star Wars game.
You know, what's interesting, Michael, about EA is like they revoked a lot of their control of Battlefront in the late summer. And that's when we obviously saw Battlefront have all these big improvements when DICE kind of took more ownership of the game. Because EA is kind of like the top, then DICE, and then the game itself. And obviously Battlefront's been on fire basically since the fall with updates and new content constantly. So it's really interesting. I don't know. It's really unfortunate. I don't want to be the typical EA basher sort of thing, but I'm always bummed to not get a new Star Wars game. So there's really not any nuance to say about than that.
Yeah. Well, I will say, based on what I've read, nobody lost their job over this, which is good. These to either be assigned to other games or continue working on it in a smaller scope capacity or whatever. But I don't think anybody lost their job, which gives a little bit for EA, I guess.
Yeah, it does. So, but that's all we know about that. It's the, a game we'll never know. It's kind of like the Star Wars 1313 all over again. But, hopefully the Jedi Order game is still going as it's been proceeding. The game about the Order 66 post Jedi world in Star Wars. We'll see what that turns out to be, and I am super excited about that, and I'll be streaming that in the future. But moving on with the news, there's a new miniseries announced by Marvel recently, Mike, and this is something that was a surprise to me. I don't know if it was to you, but we've had a lot of miniseries announced just that are standalone characters and stuff, but this makes perfect sense because Disney knows how to make money. But they have announced a miniseries, Marvel Comics, about Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. And if you guys have been under a rock or haven't heard our show recently, Galaxy's Edge, every time I see that, I just read Star Wars Land. Star Wars Land. That's what people have been saying, and I know Disney doesn't want that. I know they want people to say they want to say Galaxy, but no one's ever going to say that in passing conversation. They're going to say, "Hey, did you about the new Disney park, Star Wars Land?" Especially the I feel like Star Wars fanatics are going to say that too. And it's a series about that, and it's a series about Batuu and the Black Spire, which is the location that Galaxy's Edge is going to emulate and be. And it's written by Ethan Sachs.
What surprised me most about this, I knew this was coming because brand synergy is a Disney Lucasfilm thing.
Right.
I'm surprised it was 5 issues. I was like, they'll just do a one-off book about it, whatever. But a 5-issue miniseries about the planet Batuu and Black Spire Outpost, which is where the land is set in both Disney World in Florida and Disneyland in California. Right. You can check out. There's plenty of YouTube videos, and we talked a little bit about their Christmas preview that aired over the holidays. This place looks fantastic. The rides are supposed to be great. Star Wars Cantina, where you can get Star Wars themed drinks, sounds fun to me.
I'll be there.
And this is not the first time that Batuu and Black Spire Outpost have been presented as parts of story or canon, though, because they actually subtly name dropped in Solo last year when that came out. When Han and Chewie first hook up with Beckett, and she's like, why couldn't we have gone to Black Spire to get Bosk or anyone else other than these 2 losers?
Right.
Like, they're starting early. Yeah. They're starting to pour concrete. It's time dropping it in other movies.
What's the name of this concrete slab? Black Spire? Yes. Go.
Yeah, sure. That'll work.
Yeah. I'm excited just because, Mike, there is, and this is going to tie directly to one of our earlier episodes about alien species. I've seen a lot of that one Ithorian guy. And I hope he's in the comic series. If you've seen him, in some of the concept art, and some of the videos of the cantina and stuff like that, of the concept art, there's a prominent Ithorian, and I'm all about it. I love it so much.
Oh, I just remembered another detail related to this. I can't remember if I read it somewhere or I think I watched it on the Star Wars Explained YouTube channel. If you are listening to or watching us, never heard of Star Wars Explained, don't leave, wait till we're done, but then go watch everything on their channel because it's way better than what we do. They had a video about the Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run ride, and basically the ride is going to start out with you going to work for Hondo Onaka. For you Clone Wars fans and canon junkies, Hondo is in charge of the Falcon presently, and think that the story of the ride is going to involve Chewie getting it back, and
that'd be awesome.
It should be interesting. I was definitely surprised to see that Hondo is going to be a part of the ride. I like it, but was definitely surprised to see that.
Yeah, it's not out of the realm possibility though, so it fits the canon, which I like. So that's it on Galaxy.
Hondo's old, man. He's been around forever.
I know, right? And something that always I think about and always concerns me. But I don't know Rebels Onward if he passed away or what. But his Kawunki monkey lizard from the Clone Wars, that was always on his shoulder. He had the little, just like Salacious with Jabba, disappeared entirely. And that guy's name was Pick Muck Muck. And that might be the best name ever. So I want to see that guy come return.
Galaxy's Edge is designed to fit into the current story of Star Wars.
Right.
So, this is Millennium Falcon post Kylo Ren killing Han, so it belongs to Chewie and Rey, but Hondo has it for some reason.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So we're all supposed to fit into this story with the context of the First Order I guess the new rebellion. Should be exciting.
All right. Well, Mike, the next thing I'm pretty excited to talk about, and this is
I didn't know if this was news. I didn't know where else to put it. But we should talk about it.
It's been news for a while. We want to talk about it last week, but Mike was pretty sick, and we're like, this is not the time to.
That
this
is true.
Not the time to do it, even though we've both clearly seen it at this point. But there's been an internet thing going on, which Mike, I've got more to add on to this when we're here. But the Vader fan film by Star Wars Theory on YouTube has kind of been sweeping the world more than just Star Wars world itself. I mean, it's got how many views now? We could probably look it up.
I am looking it up right now.
It is 8 million, and it came out after Christmas. So
came out 1 month ago, according to YouTube.
Yep.
So right around.
Yep. So that's pretty darn good for a Star Wars fan film that's only been out 3.5-ish weeks, a month. So if you guys haven't seen it, you should go online and watch it. It's called Vader Shards of the Past. And, Mike, I don't know if a lot of
Episode 1, right?
Episode 1. Yeah, I'm glad you asked that and brought that up, because this was originally pitched more than a year ago as a full feature-length film, but then they realized over time with licensing things and just sheer budget alone that they had to release it in a webisode format. So they did a Kickstarter, and then they realized there were certain things they couldn't do there, and then they did a GoFundMe and all this stuff, which was great. So many fans contributed to this, which I think really shows the budget is unbelievable. But
yeah,
it finally happened. And what the most interesting part of this story to me, Mike, is that these guys took all the steps legally to get permission from Lucasfilm.
I don't know about that. I saw something recently about.
I saw that too.
Disney, Lucasfilm, someone putting out a claim. I don't know the details of it. So if you do, go with it. I don't know the full details, but I remember it was a classic internet thing. People were freaking out because they're like, after a year or two of permission, what the heck, Disney? And Disney Lucasfilm basically came out and said, it's not us. And it was actually I think it was someone from Fox, and it was using a portion of the melody of the Vader's Imperial March theme, that sort of thing. And they found a way to work it where it said, no, Lucasfilm basically owns that for now, and since it was a rendition and they did it this way, it's fine. But it's just okay. Well, I'm glad that got fixed.
Yeah, me
I
too.
Just remembered sort of seeing
because people were upset because they were thinking, after all this and all this money, they can't continue or whatever. But no, it's all is well. There is a lot of strange things around this where you can't, I don't know if you knew this, Mike, but you can't share photos or video, like GIFs or videos from this online. That's part of the deal they have worked out with Lucasfilm. You can post the trailer, hey, check this out, but that's just a static image of the trailer, but you can't do anything of the sort. And then they kind of agreed to that early on. They also agreed to no profit whatsoever. So this is truly a labor of love.
Yeah.
Love. You should watch it for that alone. So let's actually talk about it now, Mike. So now we've mentioned that it's not a feature film. It's actually a webisode series. And apparently it's
about 15, 16 minutes long.
Right. And what they did apparently was they just broke it up into, I'm assuming, I don't know, 9 or 10. We'll see how far it goes. But they basically said the entire movie they broke up into 15-minute webisodes or less. So the first webisode is out, and it's about 15 minutes, like Mike said. And I assume the next one will be that long or shorter. And they're currently in pre-production and some production of it right now. But the first,
nice.
Yeah, let's talk about the first episode, because apparently the second episode is going to take double the budget or more of the first episode.
Oh, wow.
So the first episode, this is a really interesting idea, even though some of the story points have been tread on before, and just in the Vader comics of recent times. But basically, it's less than a year out from Revenge of the Sith Vader. So it's like Vader and his transition from Anakin Skywalker to Vader. He's clearly Vader, but he's not the Vader we see 20 years later in New Hope. And I think that's what drove them to make this. They said they wanted to fill in that 20-year gap in some way, or that's what I would assume.
Yeah, and it is very well made. The visual effects are great.
That's right.
I don't want to say too much about it because I just want you to go watch it.
Yeah, it's ambitious for a fan film. I mean, At times you forget you're watching a fan film entirely, which is exactly what you want in this sort of thing. They, of course, put a lot of budget into the Vader suit and all that stuff. But yeah, you're right. The effects are pretty neat. And they do a lot of interesting things, kind of tying the Anakin power level and the Vader power level, the kind of middle ground between that, which is interesting. But what I was concerned about this, Mike, which I always am with these sort of fan films, and I don't know if this is just me, but I was concerned that it would have no story points whatsoever, that it would be a sheer action film like that Maul film that was so good. But that Maul film, it's
very good action fan film.
It's an action fan film about Maul, especially pre-Phantom Menace Maul, who doesn't talk, because he doesn't at this time.
Yeah.
Maul has a character change post-Phantom Menace, and that's intentional. So that was really well made, but it was just an action film with Maul fighting Jedi and a Padawan at the end. Really cool samurai moments in that as well, but this is not that. This does have some high intensity action scenes, but it's mainly what I just mentioned, the transition from Anakin into Vader, and that really interesting aspect to me of Vader, where Palpatine's basically like, I got you. I have you in a mechanical prison. You're mine, and you will serve me. And that's kind of the gist of it. And we see a lot in that in the original trilogy. We see a lot of that in Revenge of the Sith, but this takes that one step further. And this is kind of more in line with those Vader comics. We talked about this, Mike. Vader's thinking a lot about killing Palpatine, or he's thinking about how he's a prisoner in his own body in those Vader comics. And he's kind of resenting what Palpatine did to him and resenting what happened to Padme. And now Vader finds out he has a son in those Vader comics. And Vader's trying to get around Palpatine knowing he has a son. We haven't got to that yet in the show, though. So the show actually, I guess we could talk about this, but it ends on a cliffhanger because it's a web series, and
it's a series. Go watch it.
I'm not going to give away what happens at the end if you haven't seen it, but essentially Vader is sent to hunt down a Jedi, and that's all we'll say. And that's how it ends. So the next one is going to be him fighting a Jedi. And Mike, this is nothing new. This is exactly what Vader's doing in this timeline. We know Vader, less than a year out from Revenge of the Sith, is hunting Jedi, and that's how it ends. Is that Jedi somewhat important? Maybe, but what?
Real subtle.
Real subtle. I mean, who could it be though? Seriously, I had no idea. But what's really interesting about this, Mike, is this going to continue? Are we going to cover more episodes in the future? I hope it does, but we will see. And they probably learned a lot from making this first episode. I feel like the future episodes will even be better, and potentially, because that was their first go at it. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if you have any
if you're looking for
any criticisms, but this would be the time, I feel like.
We've mentioned it before. I just don't care about fan edits or fan films. Like I'm recognizing the time and effort and money that they put into this. Like, it is very well done. I can't do it. I'm not trying to say anything like that. I just stick to the official story is more my thing, but I'm not trying to put this down at all, because it is a fantastic work by some fans who obviously love what they're doing.
So what do you think about, like what I said earlier, like not putting you on the spot, but just like the idea of a fan edit kind of tackling some of the things that are in the canonical, like Vader comics and stuff, like just seeing that in a live action form? Do you care for that at all? Is it mildly?
No, I don't care.
I do. I don't think it needs to be done, right, by any means. But if it's out there, I'm gonna watch it and I'm gonna enjoy it. And
and it's out there in comics. I'll read it. That's fine. But I don't need to see a film that I've edited around to include that stuff.
And I think the thing with me, Mike, on these is I've actually seen a lot of fan edits, and if they're Star Wars and they're done well, I'm gonna watch it and it's gonna grip me in some way. But a lot of them I haven't finished, and I don't know. This one I finished because it's Vader and it's done well, and I'm interested in the story and the ties to Anakin. So we'll see what they do with that. I mean, it could get better, it could get worse. But
and again, I don't want people going to Star Wars hey, Canon Cantina was crapping on your film. No, that's not it. It's very well made. I'm telling you to go watch it.
Well, there's two of us, so that's your saving grace there. But
yeah, I want you to go see it. It just creates too much. Oh, this is what we should have been getting instead of The Last Jedi.
I don't think I feel that in this at all, especially because it's in prequel time period.
I know you.
Because it's in the prequel time period.
Read some comments.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's
but if
it.
you're looking for a shorter fan, Twitter, look for Clayton Sandell. He's got a short film called Bark Vader, a Star Wars story of his son and dog fighting with toy lightsabers that he put some special effects on, and it was great.
That's a whole nother level of fan film. Yeah, that's good. And the last thing,
42nd weekend one.
and the last thing we got here, Mike, in the news is Star Wars Resistance. So I'll be completely transparent with you guys at home and tell you I'm super behind because you guys know I don't have Disney XD, and it takes more steps for me to get these things, watch these things. So I don't know how many episodes even the show are out now, but it hasn't gripped me yet.
It's come back from its mid-season break, and I think they're on episode 11 or 12.
Yeah, I'm way behind then.
And
more than halfway behind.
I stopped watching right before season break, so I'm 3 or 4 episodes behind. I don't have any real desire to catch up with this show. Like
Right.
we've talked about it before, there's so much Star Wars, it doesn't all have to be for everybody. This thing might not be for me. I might not just follow this one. And it could follow the same model as Rebels, where the end of the first season actually really picked up
That's right.
in intensity, how interesting it was. And I can go back and binge watch it. I got no problem with that. I have the channel.
Did you watch the trailer
and
for the post?
I have not.
Yeah, I
no.
haven't either because spoilers, but I saw stills from it that looked beautiful. A lot of Starkiller Base stuff.
Yeah, and like I've praised the way the show looks. I'm a big fan of the art style. I like some of the new characters, but just overall, the series hadn't gripped me in a way that makes me feel like I have to take time to watch it. So we'll see. Comment on our social media. Like, am I wrong? Are we wrong about not making Resistance a priority, or is it okay to let that be, somebody else's thing?
I don't know, Mike. This is an interesting juxtaposition after the Vader thing because I'll watch the next episode of that. So I don't know.
You're right. There's some juxtaposition because we're like, well, there's the fan film you could go watch, or the official thing that we're not too. Or if you're like me, maybe I'll just go watch the dog video.
Simple man. You know what you like. I like it. So
I have. You'll learn someday when you have a youngling that 45 minutes compared to 15 minutes is like the difference in an eternity or something.
That's so right. That's so right. But that's all the news today, guys. I mean, there's a lot of stuff coming up that we're excited about. Of course, with Star Wars Celebration, actors were announced, but none of the big actors yet. Just a lot of voice actors and creators and comic writers and some of the Del Rey writers, which we're obviously thrilled about. When there's bigger news with Star Wars Celebration, we'll go through all that like as one cohesive thing. But we're not forgetting about that too. But that's really it for the news today of big stuff, because we're still kind of in a Star Wars lull before we're approaching the precipice, Mike, is what I'll call it. And when we reach the precipice and we go down, I don't think it's going to stop. I think that's like right before Star Wars Celebration till the end of the year, because we have all these shows, all these movies, all these new books, all these new comics, and obviously what we're doing on the show, covering old content and new content. So it's going to be nonstop. So we can take a breath right now, but it's about to get intense.
That's right. So we've gone on long enough today, so let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. Thanks for watching. Do you still have anybody watching us live?
We do have some people watching us, so thanks for staying here, guys.
Great. Yeah. Thanks for watching us stumble through this. Go to thecanoncantina.com for links to all of our social media, where you can tell us what you think about or the fan films or whatever. You can listen to the show there as well. We also have a new way for you to support us that's linked on our page. We have a Patreon now,
brand new.
It's also, if you're watching us, we've got the link down there on the bottom of your screen, patreon.com/the Canon Cantina, where we have several different ways for you to support us monetarily, other than writing us reviews or whatever, from $1 up to like $1 billion. No, we top out at 50.
That's
Is that
right.
our executive producer one?
Producer, our number one people. Yeah. But we mentioned the Patreon last week, guys, and that was our first time to unveil it to the world. And actually some people have signed up, which is really exciting. But just to give a quick summary of it, it's a way to contribute to us monthly, to help us pay all of our monthly and annual fees. There's a lot of them, and this is your direct way to support, and you guys get a more direct line interaction, peek behind the curtain with us. You're going to get announcements of things that are coming in the future. You're going to get unique episodes, and if you're in that special tier that Mike says the highest value tier, you're going to get extra podcast feed entirely. The Top Shelf, which is a...
Ooh, no. Is wrong. The Top Shelf is for almost everybody. It's at the $5 tier.
That's what I meant. Yeah. I didn't mean that the big boy tier. No.
Okay. Yeah.
I meant your favorite. I meant your favorite tier. Yeah.
I gotcha. Yeah. $5 gets you access to a second podcast with a not 50. $5 gets you an extra 1 to 3 hours of content from us a month. Could be Star Wars that's not related. Could be video games, could be movies, could be whatever we feel like talking about. But if you've listened to us for this long, you obviously think we've got something interesting to say. So why not check that out to see what we have to say about not Luke Skywalker?
Yeah, Mike and I have a lot to say about not Star Wars. And, it's going to be fun, Mike, to tie some of these other not Star Wars things to Star Wars in a fun way. So I'm really, really excited about the Top Shelf podcast for our patrons. So if you guys want to interested in that is a great way. So you guys get something, and you guys help us support the show and help us pay our bills. But we'll talk more about the Patreon in the future. But today we've got to say thank you to our first patron ever, Jacob Grant.
Nerd.
Yeah, Mike. He's a nerd, obviously, for supporting us.
Yep.
You're just laughing. See, this is what we have the stream now. People can see, you're
yeah, I know.
You're working on it. I get it. Mike, we
went to high school with Jake. That's why I felt like we could say that.
Mike, we have that's true. If it's the same Jake I was thinking, I assume, but you never know.
Oh, if it's not the that we went to high school with, I apologize, sir. Thank you for your support.
You're like, I retract everything. Who else we got? Yeah. Who else we got, Mike?
We have Jaron Jansen has followed us on Patreon. So he was I've known Jaron for a while through the X-Wing community out here in Utah, the old 3.2 Company podcast. So yeah, thanks for checking us out, Jaron.
Yeah, and we have one more new patron named Katie. So thank you for that as well. And so, Mike, that's a pretty good start, considering that we've had the Patreon now, I guess less than a week. So
and we stealth launched it. We didn't really tell anybody.
We're telling you now. So
yeah,
if you guys want to support us, this is actually the direct way to support us, other than writing us a review on iTunes, which I've mentioned before. This is about as direct as it gets, and it's also a direct line to communicate with us, which is very exciting as well.
Yep. So the Canon Cantina is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, Podcast Addict, YouTube, Spotify, and now streaming live on Twitch. And maybe you can watch us on YouTube later. I don't know if Jesse's worked that out yet. Sorry to throw you under this if you haven't.
Working on it, yeah. So YouTube, and yeah, if you guys haven't followed our YouTube or our Twitch pages, it's just how everything's spelled, right, Mike? I mean, twitch.tv/the Canon Cantina, youtube.com/the Canon Cantina, and we're also gonna have a way to upload some of these older videos as well to YouTube and stuff like that. So it's very exciting. Thank you to everyone that's been sticking with the episode this long. There's been several of you guys just popping in on the stream, and several of you just staying, which is very exciting. This is the first of many to come. We streamed last week, but it had up and down technical difficulties, so I'm going to call this our first full stream. It's only going to improve from here, guys. And if you think we do something better on the show, email us at canoncantina@gmail.com, and keep spreading the word of the show by subscribing, rating and reviewing on iTunes. We will read reviews next week. We haven't got any super new reviews recently, but we still have some ones to go through. So if we haven't read your review on the show yet, keep listening. It's coming. But if you haven't given us a review on iTunes yet, please do with all your Apple devices, because that actually helps the show get visibility and us to find more Star Wars fans to connect up via the show. And I'm pretty excited, Mike, about what's coming up in the next several weeks with the show, especially now that we have streaming fully underway.
That's right. If you're that brave fan who's going to write that 1-star review, it better be funny. Join us week as we go back to Legends and we talk about iJedi. You got anything else for today, man?
I think that's it, Mike. So no Exar Kun in the stream, right. I guess is what I'm saying.
Woo! Well, thanks for joining us here in the Canon Cantina today, everybody. Cheers.
Cheers. May the Force be with you.